Hey everyone, I just want to go ahead and start us off real quick with a trigger warning. This one's going to be a bit of a heavy one. We're going to be talking about loss and grief, and if you're just here to laugh and, share with us just sort of some of the more
lighthearted side of the podcast.
Stuff, this is not going to be the one for you.
Yep.
But we wanted to do this because I think it has a lot to do with our long-term goal for this podcast. We really want this to be more than just a space for us to be creative. We also want to build a community, a found family, if you will. We all need support. And one of the things that we really hope to do is make this a space where people can go for support, both in the positive things as well as when they're dealing with a lot of really heavy things that are hard to put into words.
Yeah.
And so Crystal's gonna tell us a story. It's not a story, it's just an experience of someone that she knows, and sort of a lot of just that really difficult situation that's occurring with that family. And at that point, after that, we're gonna make a request for those of you that are listening, either now or in the future, to, if you can, donate.
And we'll go more into what you're donating to.
We'll talk a lot more about that. But if you can, we'd really appreciate you donating to the GoFundMe that the family has started. And long term, and also if you can check out the Patreon, we look to as we've mentioned, I'm sure in some other places, 50% whatever is coming in on Patreon. We're going to be wanting to go back out into the community of listeners and people who.
Yeah, but for this month, all proceeds...
Everything's going to be going to
for the month of May, all proceeds will be going to the story that I'm about to share with you guys.
And we'll also be dipping into our personal, because obviously we're not bringing anything in Patreon right now, but we're going to be dipping into our own personal pockets as well and contributing, just because it is really difficult.
All right.
But yeah, go ahead and get it started.
You was about to go. Anyway, so last week I was on social media, as we all are, just scrolling TikTok, Facebook, and everything, and I saw a familiar face pop up on my page. My best friend, who I also will refer to her as wifey throughout the podcast, she shared a post of a mutual friend that we had while we attended community college, and it was saying click on this link for her GoFundMe, and I was like, okay, maybe she has some event or something. I really didn't think anything of it, and I saw another person post and then another person. I was like, okay, what the heck is going on? So I click on the GoFundMe and read the description, and it just fully broke my heart. So just to give you guys a backstory, Kelis Hamilton, we went to school together. Based off of what I remember, it's been 10 years since she and I talked. But she was a sweetheart, very quiet, kept to herself. I definitely remember seeing her at the open mics that Theo hosted. So she was definitely in the space, in the room. But she also is a new mom. And so I'm going to read the GoFundMe that the family started. And then I'll give you guys an update on where Kelis is now. So I'm going to read this because she wrote it. I'm just going to read it as she wrote it. So I'll be saying my and stuff.
And for context, Crystal had reached out.
Yes, so I did reach out.
So we're not doing this of our own.
Yeah, no, we're not doing this of our own volition. I did reach out to.
Well, we're doing it of our own volition, but we're not doing it without permission.
Yeah, so I reached out to Kelis and I asked her, I was like, hey, we have a new podcast and I really would like to contribute. Are you okay with us talking about this on the podcast? She did give us her written permission. She said it was perfectly fine. And I asked her, was there anything that we could talk about specifically? She said, just be honest and authentic. So I'm keeping to her wishes and we'll do just that. So the GoFundMe description says, hi, my name is Kelis. In October of 2020, I received the devastating diagnosis of angiosarcoma at the age of 25, which was just 6 months after I gave birth to my only son. Shortly after the diagnosis, I started chemotherapy to attempt to shrink the tumor. Due to the severity and location of the tumor, we were told that the cancer was rare and any surgery to attempt to remove the tumor would be risky. However, there was one doctor in Cleveland who was willing to take the risk, and I was willing to take that risk to prolong my life. So in September of 2021, I traveled to Cleveland, Ohio, and had the surgery where the tumor was fully removed. However, a few weeks after returning home, I received the terrible news that the cancer had returned. I continued to undergo chemotherapy treatments, but now the cancer has spread to my lungs and liver, and there is no more that can be done. As of April 23rd, 2023, I was put into hospice care. We are setting up this account for anyone that would like to donate. Any funds donated will be used to cover homegoing costs, and the rest will be for the well-being of my 3-year-old son. Our deepest gratitude goes out to you. God bless you, the Hamilton family. And unfortunately, there was an update. We are saddened to announce that Kelis gained her wings on the morning of May 7th, 2023. We appreciate the kind words and donations. Thank you for your continued support and prayers. And unfortunately, we were not able to get this episode out before her passing.
We had been hoping to do it before, but we weren't able to.
Yeah, the goal was to do it before her passing. And so just like, I guess I'll share a little bit of like my thought process going into this. So like I said, she was a very quiet person, kept to herself. At least that's the persona she showed in school. We know everyone has different personalities. But reading your normal GoFundMe, you're just like, oh, someone already died. The family is looking for support. But to see her write this anticipating the day,
being on hospice care at 28,
broke my heart. Fully broke my heart because she has a 3-year-old and she found out this information 6 months after giving birth. Yeah. And as someone who did have like minor complications with my pregnancy and postpartum and different things like that, I couldn't
even imagine.
Because you know how people are like, oh, I understand. Like, I don't know what it's like to be in that space.
And live in that space for 3 years.
And know that at any day it's coming. Yeah. And so... And the picture is a picture of her and her son. But the picture is her having gone through chemo. So she has lost her hair, like her face, her skin has kind of sagged into her face. And it's just a really unfortunate thing to see. And once again, she's our age. Like we're turning 30. She's a baby. Like we're babies, you know? And it's just really unfortunate. And the family, if you all are hearing this, trust and believe, we are sending our deepest condolences. And the day that you all will hear this episode is actually the day of her funeral. So please, 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 wherever you are listening to this podcast, click the link in the description, copy and paste however you need to do it, and donate to this GoFundMe, because even though the funeral services may be, happening today, there are still a lot of costs associated with death that we just don't know about.
And also just taking care of her child now that she's no longer there.
She's no longer here. And so all these funds will go towards taking care of her child and however the family sees fit to make sure that her wishes are respected.
And obviously money isn't going to bring their child back. It's not going to bring that poor boy's son or mother back. Yeah. But it can help take away some of the other potential stressors that come along with this. Like you're already dealing with such debilitating grief. And then having to worry about money on top of it is just so much. Yeah. We're going to try to see if we can start like a fundraising team or something on there. Y'all can donate.
I'm going to figure out, and obviously we'll have it figured out by the time you guys are listening to this, but there will be a component where, and like I said, for the month of May, any proceeds that come in through Patreon will go directly to the family.
And honestly, we might still maybe even donate, keep like a consistent, keep checking in on this story just to
keep up.
Yeah, because again, it's like...
This, unfortunately, I hate that this had to happen on this way, but this is what we wanted. We wanted to be able to build a community for the proceeds and funds
the good and the bad.
Yeah, to go to a family, because when we found out we were pregnant, and I know a lot of people hate the whole when we were pregnant, we had so many people pouring into us, so many, financially, emotionally, physically, with the things that they gave us. And it's just blessed. Like, because we had such an outpouring, the portion of this podcast we wanted to give back. And unfortunately, this
build
is
a cycle where we give back, and then some, it really continues. Just build something that can continue.
It's unfortunate that this is our first community effort, but like I said, reached out to Kelis, and she was fully on board with this. I just wish we had
been able to do
this
something
before.
Honestly, it was hard to shoot or to do this episode.
Yeah.
Because it's heavy.
It's a lot.
It's incredibly heavy. I'm gonna be honest. It's been me. I just like thinking about what that is like on both ends, right? For a 3-year-old who in that stage we have a 5 going on 6-month-old, and she depends on us for everything.
Everything.
She's on top of us at all times.
Quite literally.
And we are the center of her reality in her world. And I'm sure like at 3, that's still this case. Like that boy hasn't started like going out, and like he's still very his mom. That's his mom.
That's mommy.
And there's no way for him to understand what that's like, and it's just such a.
It's kind of like when you. I'm not going to use that analogy. Go ahead.
Crystal does have terrible
bad
analogies,
and this is just not a good analogy, so I'm just going to pass.
And then on the other end of it, though, is with her parents.
Yeah. Like,
she was 28, 29 when she passed.
That's a lot with a family to deal with.
That's so young. Like, her whole life.
Yeah.
And so just, like, from a parental perspective, I'm just thinking as well as, like, how no parent ever wants to outlive their child.
None.
And how just devastating that has to be to not be able to do anything, to not like to want to do anything and not have anything that you can do.
Yeah.
Where it's hard, and we can't even pretend to have an iota of an idea of like what this family is going through. Obviously we've all had our losses, but like this is so intimate and so real and so like present. And so we're wanting to send our love to this family, to the Hamiltons. I think their last name is
the Hamilton family.
We're sending our love, and if you're listening, please donate, send love, send positive thoughts, send prayers. It's just they're definitely going through a lot right now, and anything that we can do as a community to support and to pour out into them, it's going to be appreciated.
Jingles.
Yep.
But I was going to say because now obviously unfortunately with her passing, like a lot of people are posting on her page and different things like that, and I'm thinking about when we first found out my nephew had cancer. He was 6. And it's never an easy time to find out that it's something that you can't fix. Yeah. And so when we found out my nephew had cancer, it rocked our family because it was also right before my grandmother passed. So it was literally 2020 was a
right
mess of a year.
It was just a really
so my uncle passed
time.
In April, and then we found out my nephew had cancer in November, and then my grandmother died in December. So
it's a difficult year.
It was a traumatizing year. Like every year since that year, when the milestone comes up and when those things happen, it's just insane. And I'm just thinking back to what if for my nephew, when we found out he was diagnosed, they would have said it's nothing we can do, and we had just celebrated his 6th birthday, and so it's just, this isn't a long episode. We really want to focus on contributions going to the family, but just wanting to not necessarily understand, but resonate and just sit in the emotions that are associated with finding this out. Because like I said, when the post started circulating, a few of my colleagues from the school started sharing it, and I was just like, what the heck is this? And so I read it, I showed it to my husband, and I was like, fam, we gotta do something. And she was super receptive. The conversation was short, but she was like, be authentic, share the story. And
it's just powerful to be at that stage of hospice care and being still just having
because hospice care,
it's literally, you're on your way out.
And for her to respond, first of all, for her to respond, And I even told her, I was like, hey girl, I don't know if you remember me. I
saw the picture and I do remember her.
Yeah. And I was like, fam, I know you probably don't remember me, but what's up, girl? And she was down with it. So Kelis, rest in peace, beautiful. I'm
just gonna do a quick
it was a finish.
Sorry, go ahead.
Rude. Also, you need to move up to the microphone more. But no, Kelis, you are a beautiful soul. And just looking at your Facebook, I see that it's a lot of people that love you. Your son is forever going to be the memory of you in life form. And we will continue to do what we can down here to help and support in any way we can to the family. I know we are fully strangers, but just know that Just Parenting's podcast is here for you all, and we will be reaching out to see how we can do with the donations. And there's not going to be any funny business, y'all. All proceeds will be going to the Hamilton family.
Yeah.
We ain't got time to be lying like that. But go ahead.
I just wanted to also share, I just try to end the episode on not necessarily a positive note, but just on a more helpful note. Just some tips that I've pulled from Harvard Medicine about dealing with grief, and both as a person who's grieving as well as someone who's trying to support someone who's grieving. The number one thing being just allowing yourself to go through the feelings. Emotions,
yeah.
I know there's that stages of grief, which is very pretty and packaged, but it's not always like that, right? It can come in a number of different ways. I know for me, my grief doesn't normally look like that. It'll just look like me being oh, okay, all right, taking that, and then having a mental breakdown maybe 2 months later,
right,
over something that's completely unrelated. But allowing yourself to feel that feelings really helps you face the pain.
I'm very much an in the moment grief type of person. I think with both my uncle and my grandmother, when I found out, I passed out on both of them.
But the only way through is through.
Yeah.
And not being afraid to reach out to ask for help. This means friends, families, but ideally, just because someone's family doesn't necessarily mean they'll always be the best support.
Yeah.
Definitely looking to prioritize people who are actually willing to listen, because sometimes, unfortunately, you can get stuck in a negative feedback loop with someone where you're both sharing, and you can end up getting stuck in a negative place, in a sort of dark place. There are bereavement support groups that are available, where you can talk to a professional counselor. If you're religious, using your religion as a source of comfort can be really helpful. In this, and anything from reading the spiritual texts, praying, meditating, talking to somebody that you respect from your fellowship, that can be really helpful. And also just celebrating the person that you loved's life, and really wanting to, it can be incredibly painful in the beginning, but wanting to just honor their life and their memory. And that can look like a lot of different things. That can be writing a journal where you talk to them, or keeping a family or friend ritual that y'all used to do and continuing it down the line.
Yeah.
It can look like a lot of different ways, but the main and most important thing is taking care of yourself. In the middle of grief, it'll feel like that is an all-consuming force, where nothing else matters. You're not going to want to shower, you're not going to want to eat, you're not going to want to do anything. And it's crucial to try to do those things if you can, obviously. And if you can't, being kind to yourself and knowing that you are going through something really difficult, and that it is okay.
I will say, just to piggyback, turkey back on that, when the day my grandmother passed, a lot of the family still goes through what happened that day.
Right.
And because it's still very real. Each of us can timestamp what happened. And so my dad, he always tells us, when he ended up going to the hospital, to meet up with my uncles and them as they were taking my grandmother from patient first to the hospital, I think. He said she turned to her and told him that he looked bad, he needed to get himself well. And that phrase has been something that's stuck with him, and you've heard him say it like
every time,
every single time. And that get yourself well, because I knew my grandmother the moment they told us they were taking her to the hospital. What did I tell you? I was like, oh, she's not going. I was like, she's not going. And my grandmother said that to my father, I think knowing that she knew it was gonna be a mess. And the one thing that I feel like every person that has gone on can say is they don't want their family members lingering and sitting and crying, and go through your emotions, but don't let it get to the point where you just stop living. Because the best gift that you can give to a person that has gone on, as the church folk would say, from labor to reward, continue to live your life, continue to smile, continue to live in their memory, continue to do the things that they would have done if they were here. And I think that's a big thing for me personally. Just thinking back to those people that I've lost in the past and how I continue to honor their memory. Like with my grandmother, I sew in occasions when I can, because she loved to sew. And that's just a small thing I do to pay tribute to her. Or decorating for random holidays, stuff like that.
Yeah. And one of the things, and I'm just going to do one more for people who are trying to comfort someone who is dealing with grief. And one of the advice that is given is don't be afraid to name what happened. Instead of trying to sort of dance around the issue, talk about it. Name the person's name that's gone. Don't just say, oh, I'm sorry for your loss, and be sort of dismissive about it, but really talk to what happened. Put
a name to that person.
And when you're trying to help, be really specific with the help. So instead of just being like, oh, how's it going? Come with a meal.
Need anything.
Yeah, don't say come with a meal. Volunteer to help with shopping. Come help clean.
Come with a list of things.
Literally just come to make life easier.
Yeah.
And then also listen instead of advising. Nobody really needs... There's no advice that's going to help someone get through this kind of thing. They just need a listener. Even if they're talking the same story for the 15th time, still listen, and listen attentively, and give them that respect and that attention. There's a beautiful analogy. I'm pretty sure I saw it on TikTok, because I feel like I see everything on TikTok. But it basically was that grief is like a box, and inside the box there's a button that causes pain. Grief is like this massive ball that basically is inside the box, and it bounces around, and every time it hits the button, you feel a lot of pain. In the beginning, that ball is huge, and it takes up most of the space in the box. And so every time the ball moves, it's causing pain. But throughout time, the ball will get smaller and smaller and smaller. It'll never go away, but it'll get smaller and smaller. And so what'll happen is, as the ball is bouncing around, there'll be days when, even though you are still grieving, you'll wake up with a smile, and the sun will be shining, and things will be okay. And then the ball will hit the button, and you'll feel pain again. And eventually you'll get to a place where the ball is so small that it only sometimes, maybe once in a month, maybe once every 4 months, maybe once every couple of years, it'll hit that pain point, and you'll feel it. It never does quite go away. My mother still cries every Mother's Day.
Same.
Because she lost her mother when she was young. And she is well into her 60s and still feels pain from something that happened when she was 17 years old. So it never does go away, but it does get easier as time passes. And lastly, I'll just share a Kinyarwanda word that just encompasses so much. Obviously, some of you know Rwanda suffered through just a catastrophic event with the genocide, where hundreds of thousands of people, some sources might say millions, were butchered, and there's a lot of loss, where most families have at least experienced some type of loss. And they have a word that says ihangane. It literally translates to English as be patient, but it encompasses like a depth of emotion that just isn't really, I'm not able to like articulate in English, but it essentially just speaks to the strength and resilience that is inherent in humanity to endure, to persevere. In spite of awful circumstances, we have the ability to persevere. We have the ability to get through. We just have to be patient. Thank you all so much for listening, and please go and donate. Thank you.